2020, why are you such a big... In a year that we're so sick and tired of already, why wouldn't we have to deal with a crazy hurricane season? We've talked in our Thursday night live streams every week since the hurricanes. We've talked about the hurricanes. We were hit by Laura and Delta and some other stuff in between. But we haven't shown you anything as far as what we've dealt with here on the homestead. I did put out a video of footage that I got from Lake Charles, from the fire truck, and if you haven't seen that, I'll post it in the corner here. But when we got home, because I rode out the hurricane at the firehouse, Hurricane Laura, and it was crazy. Watch that video. It was unreal. But we got here back to the house, and things were pretty tore up. I mean, it was a strong Category 4 hurricane. The house was kind of damaged. We had some roof damage, which fortunately, being part of the firefighters union, some union guys came out and helped us tarp that. We did lose our skirting. We are in a double wide, in case you don't know, but it's only 5 years old, and these things are, the outer shell of the double wides nowadays are built like a house. They're built good and strong. Fortunately, we didn't have any broken windows. We did, because I was hard-headed and did not listen to Amy and tie down the porch. The back porch did flip, and now it's all shaky and wonky. So that's going to have to be rebuilt. Little disclaimer, though. There was people who really got some severe damage from this hurricane, and I don't mean to take away or make light of their situations. This is just to show you what we dealt with after the storms. Fortunately for us, this shop, shed, whatever you want to call it, that I'm kind of under right here, none of this got any damage. My watering system, or my rainwater system, no damage there. The meat chickens that we had at the time, they were only about 4 weeks old. They rode out the shed. They rode out the storm in the shed, inside some totes. So just overnight, they did okay. They did good. Now the PVC chicken tractor that we had built did not do so well. We tied it down the best we could in the yard with some long spikes, but the winds, I mean, 150, 180 mile an hour winds, it's hard to keep anything from being tore up. So the storm just kind of tossed it around, wadded it up, left it for us in the middle of the yard, all wonky, and we put it back together the best we could for the rest of the chickens' lives, which was only about another 5 weeks. We did butcher the chickens couple of weeks ago, and I will be working on that video next. Our bamboo arbor, we lost it. It got all tore up by the hurricane. The enclosure, the coop that we have attached to our feed storage room, feed storage building, whatever you want to call it, that did sustain some damage. The whole building was pushed by the winds. It shifted about 3 inches, and all of the fencing attached to that got tweaked and taken out of square. So it's all going to have to be redone. Our big trees, we've got a big live oak and our big pecan, which the pecan, you know, that whole story. The pecan was struck by lightning twice, and then the top got knocked out of it. That's a whole nother story. There's a whole video playlist, and I'll put a link to that here too. Anyway, those 2 trees got quite a lot of limb damage. They weren't uprooted like some of the trees that I've seen in the area. And some of our chicken trees, we call them chicken trees, they're Chinese tallow trees, over in the neighboring property that we help to maintain. those got topped, so some of those are going to have to come down too. All in all, Laura left us with an insurance claim, and the insurance company is taking pretty good care of us, so we're not sweating that too bad. It's just the things that we're not able to insure. That's the stuff that we're having trouble with. The 4 days following Hurricane Laura, we were out of power. Well, we were out of power for 11 days, but 4 days, while I was doing a lot of on-duty work with the firehouse in Lake Charles, Amy and Abby were here just being absolute troopers. For 4 days, they went without air conditioning and a generator, and we were finally able, on Amy's birthday, to secure a borrowed generator and air conditioner, so that made things a whole lot more bearable for the rest of the time, the next week that we were out of power. Following Hurricane Laura, we were threatened by Hurricane Sally, which fortunately for us, it went a different direction. Unfortunately for the people who were in the path, it went over to and affected Mississippi, Alabama, Florida. We did get some winds from it and some weather from it, but it wasn't bad at all. So that was the second hurricane that we were affected by. Again, very minimal. The third one was Tropical Storm Beta, which was fortunately very mild in comparison to Hurricane Laura. We just got a little wind and rain, no big deal. The fourth hurricane, the fourth tropical system, was Hurricane Delta, which actually made landfall 13 miles to the east from the landfall of Hurricane Laura. By the way, Hurricane Laura, if I'm not mistaken, was the strongest hurricane to ever make landfall in Louisiana. So 13 miles between the two landfalls, between Hurricane Laura and Hurricane Delta. And here's a little map, and we are roughly right here. Hurricane Delta, the center of the eye, pretty much passed right over us. Fortunately, it was not as serious a storm as Laura. Now, here's the thing. In true 2020 fashion, Hurricane Delta was stronger on the west side, which is totally unprecedented. I saw a post from a meteorologist who says, I've been a meteorologist for 40 years and I've never seen a storm stronger on the west side. So that means the same people who were affected tremendously by Hurricane Laura were again hit by Hurricane Delta. And Delta was not as strong as Laura, but it's like poking a bruise. It still freaking hurts. Delta was more of a flooding event than a wind event like Laura was. We evacuated for 2 days over to Kirbyville, Texas, which was not far enough because we were still hit by the effects of Hurricane Delta. But when we got back home, all of this right back here, which is our way backyard, it was all flooded. That tree line off in this direction that you see behind me, that tree line is the bayou. And the bayou just backed up, overflowed, and our entire backyard was flooded. Fortunately, it did not get up high enough to get into the beehives. So, unfortunately, the bridge that we share with my godfather and godmother, the bridge over the bayou, was lifted by the floodwaters, and the entire structure underneath was leaned over, damaged. And then when the bridge came back down and settled back in place, it's actually about 6 feet out of place. It's too far toward my godfather Danny's side of the bayou. So I'm not sure exactly what it's going to take to get that back in order. But I can tell you, it was really heart-wrenching to see his reaction, because we had all worked so hard on building that bridge, and that's his easy access to get over to our backyard on his mower or four-wheeler, whatever he would choose to come over here on. Now he's got to drive all the way around in his truck, and anyway, he was very distraught, and it really hurt my heart to see his reaction. So anyway, that's that. I wanted to give you an update with some visuals on what we had been dealing with since the storms. And we're working on getting things back together. It's just going to take some time. Of course, we greatly appreciate those who were able to help us financially, those who were able to give us physical work help, and those who speak to God on our behalf and give us prayers. And that's so important. We really appreciate each and every one of you, and we'll talk to you down in the comments.